Hi. During the pandemic, we want to make sure everyone stays safe. My name is Reggie Pittman, and welcome to Holistic Health with Reggie. We have four distinguished guests here. I'm going to start to my far left. We have Dr. Henry Pruitt, who is a member of the TNEC Council currently. We have Dr. Artie Walser, who is the president of the school board in TNEC, New Jersey. We have Mr. Jason Jackson-Smith, current graduate of Kane University and a counselor, licensed counselor. And we have Jeff Carter, who is the president of the Bergen County NAACP. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming. Let's get right into it. George Floyd, right? I'm going to start with you, Dr. Pruitt. George Floyd, I don't know, did anybody not see the video? All right, so everybody saw it. When I saw the video, I literally started crying, and I'm not like a really kind of crying kind of guy, but I couldn't believe what I saw. There obviously needs to be some type of police reform. When you saw the video, and as far as police reform, what were your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts were that this was a clear example of how Black folks have been mistreated. But I've seen that kind of behavior so many times that it didn't excite me like it excited people who never saw it before. Remember the guy who was trying to sell off-brand cigarettes, got choked to death?
Eric Garner.
Dylan Roof, who went into church and prayed with people for a little while and then pumped 50 bullets into 9 people. It's an epidemic of American behavior against Black people.
Well, you bring up a lot of good points, and there should be some police reform. Jeff, what would you say is the simplest way to reform the police based on what Dr. Pruitt just said?
Well, I wholeheartedly agree. I was in Los Angeles when Rodney King happened, and we said we finally got him. It's on tape, and they shot holes in that. The first thing is legislation, which is happening, and everybody wants to say, oh, they're good policemen, and absolutely there are. But policemen are not blue, they're not black, they're not white, they're blue, they're not black and white. As we looked in a number of cases, and if you want to start with Mr. Aubrey and Miss Taylor, and then go to Mr. Floyd, and after that you would have said, gosh, it's going to be a while before the next one. And right while Mr. Floyd was happening in Atlanta, some policemen pulled 2 college students out of the car, and they happened to be African American. I think 4 of the 6 were African American. They broke the windows, pulled them out, and at Morehouse and Spelman, and the college had told them, go protest, live your Black college life. And then so what they get for that, he gets a broken arm and tased, both of them, and over what? Then you say, okay, again, that's bad. 4 days after the body is in the ground for Mr. Floyd, a guy loses his life for sleeping and being drunk. As we had the preeminent attorney, civil rights attorney at our Freedom Fund, Ben Crump said, the system is racist. When we negotiate with the police contracts, it's in their contract. They negotiate usually with city council or whatever. And the negotiations, we talk about diplomatic immunity. And if a diplomat kills somebody, they send them back home. If a policeman kills somebody, they send them to another job.
I want to ask you, Artie, Dr. Walser, about the cops. Do you feel that the majority are good? Your thoughts on George Floyd, but what's your thought, man? I want you to jump in, Jason.
Well, my personal experience has been mixed. I've had some good experiences with police officers, and I've had some bad ones. I don't think there's a Black man over 30 that hasn't been pulled over, driving while Black, or walking while Black, or standing in their building while Black, or standing in a lobby of a hotel. All those things I have experienced, even with my PhD. No one asked me my credentials when they're pulling me over. I think that it's multiple levels. I mean, like anything else, it's cultural, meaning the culture of being a police officer. My sister was a New York City police officer. I have several brothers who retired as captains in corrections. It's a whole sort of mentality. And then there's institutionalization of that. And, I agree with Jeff that, it's a blue thing. It's not a black or white or Asian thing. It's a blue thing. It's the militarization of police officers. And when you look at the history of that, police officers were created, or rather this policing attitude was created almost 200 years ago, when they had emancipated the slaves. The white folks during Reconstruction got really upset because during that period, you had something like about somewhere between 65 and 85% of black people voted, and as a result of that, you had about 1,100 elected officials, of which 22 of them were in Congress, and 2 of them were senators, black. And white folks went crazy. They said, we ain't having it. No, they literally went crazy. Then you have the 1877 Compromise, where basically the Union pulled out those soldiers out in the South, and then the white folks said, how do we get these free black folks who now are a little bit beyond themselves back on the plantation? Well, that's when you get into the Jim Crow laws. You criminalize it. You are committing crime just standing there with these vagrancy laws. If you're not employed, the person won't hire you, and then you're arrested. They put you in jail, and then they get you to work for nothing for the plantation. So this is actually carried on all the way to 1964, where we had the Civil Rights Act, put into place. And so this is in recent history. So you have all of that history, all of that inertia. And now we look into the 90s, where Republicans and Democrats who militarized the police force. And I think back to Amadou Diallo, who was totally innocent, blown to bits, 49 bullets.
Rocks.
Yeah, up in my wife's old neighborhood. And they got away with it. And so this sort of mentality, and then we look at the statistics and the data that's out there to support that police officers are much more hostile to black people in general than they do to whites. I mean, we knew that already anecdotally, but that has been supported by research. So we need to have legislation that puts in place. Calm down, man.
You've been talking the whole time.
No, I got something. I'm going to add.
He's kind of old. He's going to fuck me.
I'm so very good, man. All right, go ahead, man. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm going to give you I want to get Jason in here. I want to get. Don't do that.
So let me just say.
Finish up, man.
I got something over
I thought you were about to do some push-ups over here, so, man. I don't know.
We need legislation to get rid of these crazy laws that empower police officers to do crazy things, that basically make them omnipresent and omnipotent when they're out there in the streets, that they need to be held accountable. But also, I mean, in a town like Teaneck, where you have a police force of about 90 some odd police officers, where you can have this sort of connection, I put that on the leadership of the council, I put that in the leadership of the town manager and the chief of police, that you're in this particular town. And there's a certain attitude that you can have. And actually, I've had some good experiences with police officers in this town.
Well,
So I'm saying there's a systemic issue, and then there's on the personal level in terms of where you are and how do you manage that sort of thing. And we need to address that issue.
I'm going to come up. I'm going to come back to you.
Okay.
I'm going to come back to you. If you get too hyper, just do some push-ups.
I'm good.
But if you're going to drop and give me some, I want at least 20. At least 20. Chest down. All right? All right. So like this. Chin down to the neck. All right? If you can't touch your chin, stay there. You're making me nervous, man. You're making me nervous, man. He's doing all this. I thought he's a choreographer or something, man. What is he doing over there, man? Keep your hands on your knees. Man, come on, man.
Can I go before we go?
No, because I want Jason hasn't spoken and we've been on for 15 minutes. Jason, Artie brings up a great point, right? The systemic treatment of people of color, right? And the whole thing with how that works. You are the only person I know of that was born out on the side of the country, so you have a whole different take on it.
Yes.
But you've been here, you grew up here, so.
Yes.
So there's a thing called the Civilian Law Enforcement Group, right? Where civilians can be like a civilian, kind of like a crossing guard, sworn in person that you can de-escalate a situation. You could do. So that would have been a great thing that could have happened at Teaneck High School, right? Because if you had civilians that could have came in, helped out, especially if they were parents because they lost students. So the parents could have definitely helped this. Definitely. Well, parents hopefully would help out the situation.
I've seen everything.
Right. Well, so my question is.
I've seen a lot.
My question is, the civilian law enforcement group, would that be a good thing here? They do it in California, like 800 people in, I believe it's San Diego. So your thoughts on the police, George Floyd, and the civilian, first of all, the civilian law enforcement group?
Actually, I think that's a great idea. You think about what cops do. They have to go to fires, construction, they have to get mentally ill individuals off the street, they have to be in domestic violence situations, all these different things, right? So when you have these groups that can be trained in de-escalation, which is a theme that I think was needed in all these scenarios, de-escalation, you know, it makes a difference. If you think about, if you were a licensed gun owner in New Jersey and someone breaks into your house, by law, you have to prove that you de-escalated the whole situation. So if a man walks in, you have to announce that you're in my house, you have to leave, I have a gun, and you can't do anything with that gun until you announce that. You know, that's de-escalation right there.
For a cop?
No, for an individual protecting his house.
Okay, for civilians.
Yes. So if we're held to that standard, it should be held even more so to a police officer who has that power, whose house is basically the whole time. So you have these new cops that are coming in, and I grew up in Teaneck. I think I had a great experience with cops because one of my best experiences was through a resource officer, Officer Santiago. Mm-hmm. He used to be in the schools all the time, and you know, we built a relationship with him. Yes.
Santiago is a police officer who worked at Teaneck High School, resource officer, thank you.
Growing up, I didn't really fear cops. I actually remember getting pulled over not too long after I got my license. Like, as soon as I got my license, I had a handy-down, like, red BMW, driving up Cedar Lane.
Rite of passage.
Driving up Cedar Lane, and I got pulled over, and, you know, and this is another aspect of being a black person, you know, in America. Just being that age, and I know I didn't do anything wrong. I already have my goosebumps going. My adrenaline is pumping. I literally just learned how to drive. So the officer comes up to my door and he's like, "Do you know how fast you were going?" And to be honest, I don't think I was going fast. He said I was going a little too fast, but you know, we were just having a discussion. I brought up Officer Santiago. He said, "Oh, you know Officer Santiago? I'm gonna call him up and see how you are. If you check out, you know, I'll let you go." And I got off, no ticket, you know, and it was my first experience with cops. It was my first time getting pulled over for something like that. I learned my lesson. I didn't experience my first, like, real profiling until I left. Like, as soon as I was done high school. Exactly. As soon as I was done high school, I went to college. That's when it was just like hitting me in my face, like everywhere I was going. You know, I'd seen little things here and there when I was a kid, you know, going into a store and stuff like that. But now it's like, you know, even the police officers on campus and like, you know, just because the area that I'm at, you know, they expect that, you know, people off campus are coming in and, you know, they're not, like Mr. Walter said, they're not asking me if I'm, you know, at the school or what my credentials are.
I want to ask you something though, on that point. When, as a young black driver, when you get pulled over, what do you think a person should do?
Okay, so
then I'm gonna come to Dr. Pruitt. You're about to do some push-ups.
It took me a while to really understand. I actually had to have a conversation with a police officer to really understand the thought process behind it. So, you know, if you have a car, you have tents and all of this, and, you know, you got to expect that they don't know you as much as you don't know them. And they're allowed to be afraid. They're allowed to be worried or scared that, you know, they want to go back to their families too. So my suggestion is be as non-threatening as possible. And I know that sounds hard and it's kind of impossible in this atmosphere that we're in.
If you're just sitting there, that's not
exactly.
So
exactly.
what? So be more specific. Can you?
Exactly. So rolling down your windows, turning your lights on. I roll down my window. I don't roll down all the windows because I don't know if there's gonna be like a truck or something in my car, oh, now let me search your car type of situation, but license and registration and your visor, not license, your registration and insurance and your visor, so you're not reaching into any middle compartment.
So you're not moving around doing all like
Exactly.
this.
And me
Okay.
personally, if I see a cop pull me over,
That's the rule when they stop you.
exactly,
Before you do
so my
anything.
hands are already there.
Or
So,
either top of the steering wheel.
Exactly.
Yeah, one of the two.
yeah, so I like my palms open. Basically have my wallet ready to go before he even walks to the car, so I'm not reaching back into my pocket or anything like that. And keep your composure. You know, that's the biggest thing. It's easy to get aggravated. It's easy to escalate with the officer, but you know, when you maintain your level, people usually are able to, you know, level off with you. But if you just have that one cop that's looking for a situation, I've said this before, and I will not stop saying this until I see a change. The only thing that saves black men and black women in America are cameras. If you have a
That's
camera,
right.
But that's not true, because look at all the cases we've seen.
If
where they're
it
convicted.
wasn't George Floyd, if there was no camera at the George Floyd thing, we wouldn't.
Now-
Okay, but they haven't been convicted.
but that's the thing. I never
That's
said
true,
it,
but we wouldn't even be talking about it.
but I never said it was guaranteed. I never said it was guaranteed.
There have been much more that haven't been from Rodney King on.
Yes.
So please don't say that, because the numbers don't back that up.
So, from my experience, from what I'm seeing as a 30-year-old young African American who is seeing these things, as soon as when I wake up, this is what I see. I feel bad for these kids because they've become so desensitized to this at a young age. You know, seeing George
Desensitized to the killing.
Exactly. Seeing George Floyd die on camera, in my heart, it did nothing for me in terms of like an individual thing. It's not like I've been so desensitized to seeing black people dying on camera that it just made me, the only thing that it made me was angry. You know, it made me want to stand up and all these things, but we forget that like, that's an actual person dying. It's like another clip that we see, like in passing. It just so happened that George Floyd's clip happened when there's no sports, there's no baseball, there's no basketball, everyone's bored at home, no one's going to work, so there's no excuse for you not to be seeing these things because it's plastered everywhere. You have to make sure you keep yourself on camera. You have a right to record. They can't tell you that you can't record. You don't have to be like overt. You can do it very discreetly. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, I stand firmly in saying that the only thing that I've seen, and I'm not saying it's guaranteed every time, and I'm not saying that the person has to be alive for it to happen, but when a camera is present, that's the only time that they will believe what we're saying as opposed to an officer. That's from my experience.
Before we get into education, I want to get back
Okay.
to Dr. Pooler.
I'm going to take it from a different perspective. For 50 years or more after Reconstruction, it was the law of the land for people to be segregated. The Jim Crow laws were passed by states and local areas where it was okay to beat up on black people. And we all seen the movie with the dogs, the police dogs, and the fire hoses, and the Pettus Bridge where people ran up and down with horses and beat the hell out of folks. Nobody got prosecuted. It's in the fabric of the American culture. The cops are agents of the state. Now, because of Floyd, people are paying more attention to that. We need to have an operation in terms of our innermost sensitivities for us as people to reject that kind of behavior. If the people in the community or in this country or in the state reject it, the cops will not be doing what they do.
I just want to just add one other point to this, that, this protesting here is not just in the States. And this behavior is not just in the States. I mean, black and brown people all over the world are being abused, and now folks are rising up. You have protesting that's going on in England, in France, and Germany, where folks, and, just as we see these videos on Facebook of blacks in America being harassed by police officers, there are a number of them in England. I've seen a number of these things, sometimes I wake up in the morning and it's just not a good way to wake up looking at that kind of thing. And so this is the systemic of it, you know, that to your point about police officers being frightened, most people are frightened because they've been trained to be frightened in this country. And actually that's been supported by research, that people associate black folks with things that are not good, even other black people. And you're absolutely right. When you're in the car, you have to be the professional, because if the cop and you're both having a bad day, you may not walk away from that thing. And so you have to kind of, but you know, the camera thing, I'm kind of with Jeff. The camera, because they're wearing cameras. They said, I don't care.
Turn them off.
Right, but even when they have them on, I mean, these catching all this thing, it really comes back, I think, to your demeanor and to your point about, you know, staying cool, staying calm. I go with very zen mode when cops pull me over. I mean, it's yes, sir, how can I help you? Blah, 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 this. I'm not talking about my constitutional rights. I'm not trying to win anything there. You do that later. You know, the object is to leave that place alive and intact. You know, and so I think that, unfortunately, as a person of color, that's how we live. And the irony of that is that white folks have no clue of that. Zero. And they say, well, I don't get this. I don't understand it. And you don't, because they're not really experiencing it.
Right.
I just want to say one thing to that is, we have to stop being so passive as blacks. And, you know, the only thing that this culture understands is burn, baby, burn. What got stuff done, and let's be very clear, is burning the hell out of Minneapolis. If you look back, and to Dr. Pruitt's and Artie's point, we don't know our history of since Juneteenth was happening and Black Wall Street. 150 to 300 people were murdered. Murdered. Forget the property damage. Were murdered, and not one person was even brought to justice, or even thought to be brought to justice in that case. So again, when we understand that, what got action, yes, people saw the 8 minutes and some odd seconds. Every city and our elected officials, both black and white, be passive. Don't, when you burn this son of a gun down, and I'm not advocating doing that, when you burn the son of a gun down, yes, it causes problems in Newark and other places still haven't come back from that. But violence is the only thing the system listens to.
Violence is not, I'm going to say violence.
The burning, I should say.
But everybody that was protesting was not a riot. All right, so let's distinguish protesting and rioting. Right, so I'm gonna get to you, Dr. Pruitt. You still didn't give me any push-ups. So the protests are basically peaceful. There are people that are coming in that are rioters that are usually, in my opinion, planning. Right, so they might not actually be part of the protest, but they're coming in to be instigators, which you say.
But the protest for 400 years
but my point is that the rioters could come in, but that could be at any point. So I wouldn't say that the only way to do it is the...
No, but what I'm saying is if you look at history, I understand what you're saying, I should take this up. If you look at history, it says that, it says that what is listened to is violence and economics.
Well, I'm going to say that it's economics because when you think about, you know, the civil rights movement, when they had the Montgomery boycott, they did that for almost a year.
And that's
what black folks,
bus company
that changed
and
everything.
the businesses to their knees.
More than the burning down.
Listen, we gotta switch to education. Education for the black male. Is it working? Is it not working? We're gonna get to that. So
let's go back
say to say, then we change it up to education.
Let's go back to Dr. King, who was a peacemaker. When people don't understand his genius. If he had gone the violent route, we wouldn't be sitting here.
The only reason he got away from it
we would have been hunted
because of
like
the
they
Black
other
Panthers and Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam.
Okay, I'm just saying that the reason why these protests are so important and so meaningful is because they're multicultural. If all the people in Washington, D.C. that were protesting were black, Trump would have turned the troops on them.
He did.
He didn't.
He gassed them and got him out of his...
I'm going to lie, boys.
Well, with Dr. King, it was definitely the Black Panthers that helped out. Malcolm X had it with the Nation of Islam. I think there were two different things. But with education, do you think that education is serving the black male currently in the year 2020 well? And what's your thoughts on the education and the current state of the black male in education?
I can't focus on black male education. I can focus on education.
All right,
I
education.
think black communities in this country are not funded at the same level as other communities, and it's because they're not loved as much by the power structure. I
You
think
talking
that-
Teaneck, Bergen County?
Oh, I
you
think
talking
Teaneck,
North, South?
I think Teaneck has a good school district, and they have a well-funded school district, a very well-funded school district. We have in our psyche an attitude as Americans that it's okay for everything to treat black people differently than white people. Now, part of that has to do with our sleeping at the wheel. There are times when we could show up and vote when we stay home, and then we boo-hoo about how we lost. So we got some responsibility too.
With U.S. history. We never learned about the Tulsa massacre in 1919.
Or Rosewood either, that's another time.
Rosewood, we haven't learned about that. It's a whole lot of things that don't happen.
Oh, we'll make it this
So,
quick.
well,
You mentioned Tulsa. When the riot was over, the woman who accused the black kid of bothering her said he didn't do it. Meanwhile, 10,000 people out of houses and 300 or 400 people are dead.
Same thing happened with Emmett Till. He said he didn't
but
do
that
it.
was on her deathbed.
Yeah, that was
After
50 years later.
Exactly.
50 years later.
57 years later.
Yeah, after
And
he
this
had
thing in the
died,
park
he
was
didn't get a
serious.
chance to see his 18th birthday. Well, he didn't. He was, what was he? 14?
Yeah.
The thing in the park, in Central Park, that was really interesting. Bird watching.
Yeah,
I mean,
because that was black man raping white woman, but not said.
It's like I said before, the camera, you know,
Yeah, definitely.
The camera.
I fully 100% understand what you're saying, but I honestly feel like these interactions need to be recorded. These interactions need to be recorded for us, for our safety, because I guarantee you that in most of these situations, they would have believed that white woman. And the thing is, these white women, these white men, they know the climate, and they know what it's like. They not what it's like, but they know what's going on with black people being killed by police officers.
Oh, I agree with the camera. See, what you're not looking at, you're looking at the first layer and not the second layer. The first layer says that, okay, she was fired from Franklin Templeton, and the second layer says that she goes on to another company and succeeds and becomes a rich white woman. And what happens with African American, they get stopped, they get whatever, and then they end up never being able to get a job again.
But we were never able even to get past the first layer.
So
If
that's
there
the
was
thing.
not a camera, then we wouldn't even be talking about some of these.
Let me
Let Jason finish, then we'll get back.
So that's the thing, with these layers, it's on us to keep the follow through. We have to keep that pressure. We can't just be okay with arrests. Arrests mean nothing, because at the end of the day, they can be acquitted of all charges.
And as the policeman who is charged with the murder is still able to get his $1 million pension, even if he's there. So that's where reform comes in.
In New Jersey, we have made an attempt at educating people about the American history as it is, called an Amstead curriculum.
Don't go there,
But
Doc.
I don't know any school district that's implementing that, and the Amstead staff in Trenton has 1 or 2 people. So we talk a lot of good stuff, but when it comes to making sure that it happens, sometimes we fall short.
It's 20 years old, the Amistad law. And districts are, you know, you get what you fund, and we have how many, 500 some odd school districts, 570? 600 in the state,
New Jersey.
in New Jersey. And you have one person to deal with it, and, you know, the NAACP Bergen has had her come up and speak to our education committee.
You have special education. It's an unfunded mandate. You know, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you have to pay no matter what.
Well, let me jump in, and since I'm the rebel rouser and enjoy it, and let me say that, enjoy it.
Well, you're president of the NAACP, so you need to.
He was on school
Well,
board too. That's how we met.
Yeah, we have the most segregated schools in the country.
Who?
New Jersey.
Okay.
I
the
think New York
NAACP
is competing with you there.
Huh?
New York is competing.
Well, yeah, that's not a good thing.
No, that's not a good
States,
thing.
But,
No.
you know, if you look at Trenton, Camden, Patterson, Jersey City, Newark, and even Inglewood. Inglewood, the district is almost all black. The town isn't, but you can count the number of non-minorities on one or two hands. So, you know, and yet the state of New Jersey is fighting the NAACP to desegregate the schools. The current, you know, Attorney General tried to get the case thrown out, Grunwald. So, you know, we have to stay vigilant. We have, you know, we talk about Amistad, we talk about the segregation, and you know, one of the problems that we have in New Jersey is that Harriet Tubman said, they said, you did a great job freeing the slaves. And Harriet Tubman said, I could have freed how many more if they would only known they were slaves. If we only understood how bad New Jersey is for African Americans, with the prison system, with the education system, we're 13 to 15% of the state, yet we're 62% of the prison population. And so, and I can go on and on with numbers, you know, but so we have to understand as a people where we are. Is that a lot of where we've gone wrong in our schools. We used to have, when I was coming up, a person who worked well with his hands, and let's say that never college material would get through the English, history, and math, go down into the basement, work on cars, work on plumbing, work on electrical, work on carpentry, and they were happy. Now we're saying you got to go in the classroom and you can't do that, or you got to go to Bergen Tech or whatever.
Look at cars now.
Let me say this. One of my fraternity brother's sons dropped out of college and is working on high-end cars and is making more than you and I will ever make.
But I'm saying it's not about the money. That's what I'm saying.
No, but I'm saying, but he found
There's 2 points. You can go into something that you love, or you can go into something for money. If you go into something for money, you will probably be miserable. If you go into something for love and you make a lot of money, the life is good.
Okay.
Let
me say this.
I do real estate for
I
money.
think
I do music
it
for
is
love.
irresponsible for us to tell everybody, all the kids, you ain't no good if you don't go to college. There are some people who don't go to college that have a good life. I'm saying it's our responsibility to kind of open the whole thing for them, and then help them get whatever it is they're after. Because I know a lot of college folks
who are miserable,
who are very, very difficult to have a job. I don't know any plumbers that have trouble with a job. I'm not saying on plumbers.
And let me say this one thing too. In today's college, it's about economics. Because if I go to college, spend 100, come out with 100,000 in debt, and I go work at Macy's, and I can never recoup that.
But you ain't got to do that.
Right. Right, so listen, we got to do closing remarks because we're way over time. We were supposed to just do an hour, but you all have been great, right? So we have Jeff Carter, president of the NAACP, Jason Judson Smith, counselor, licensed counselor. This is Dr. Artie Walser, president of the school board, associate dean of engineering at City College, Dr. Henry Pruitt, educator, and also councilman in Teaneck, New Jersey. My name is Reggie Pittman, and thank you for joining us with Holistic Health with Reggie. I'm going to give closing remarks. You all just kind of disrespected me a little bit. I feel, it's like brotherly love some, but then I say give a minute, and then you talk for 5 minutes. He just graduated from school, so he don't know he can be disrespectful. But you are showing him a bad example of time management. You're right. So what I'm saying is, we're going to do this. I'm standing up. We're going to do this where everybody gets 30 seconds. Give me 30 seconds. Everybody gets 30 seconds. Hold it up so they can see it too. And then you got to give a closing remark of what a person should know in order to make their life better. African American.
Say that. Ask the question again.
I get it back to you when I say it again. 30 seconds.
What you should do is believe in yourself, no matter what anybody says. Believe in yourself, and never let anybody tell you you can't succeed.
Thank you. And we're speaking to African American males primarily.
I would say take some time to get to know yourself, what you're good at, what you're not good at, your strengths, your weaknesses, and also take risks, especially if you're young. If you're young, I advise you take risks. If it doesn't work out, you're not that far from where you started in the first place. So just
Thank you.
I'll take the words from the bard, the white bard, as opposed to the black bard. To thy own self be true.
I'll say that we owe George Floyd a debt of gratitude for dying the way he did. Because as much as we like Obama and other people who come before us, more things have happened in the past month to help America become the dream that they claim they are, than has happened in years and years and years before.
Well, thank you for joining Holistic Health with Reggie. I'm just going to close with these remarks. Remember, you can do whatever you want to do. Just believe, because one thought can change the world. Thank you. Have a good night.